Welcome to another episode of Behind the Strategy, a place for conversations, a place to find out and reveal all. What is behind your strategy? And in this episode, I am talking to the very inspiring Sharon Louca. Now, I say very inspiring because we talked about having this conversation at a recent networking meeting, didn't we? And you shared a story, and I was so inspired by how you were talking about the vulnerability of showing up and how this can really impact other people. So welcome, Sharon. First of all, welcome. Thank you for being behind the strategy.
No, thank you for inviting me, Kate.
Yeah, marvellous. So let's just jump back to that meeting. You were talking about, well, tell us what the purpose of why you wanted to share that story.
Okay, so there was 4 of us collaborating in the Great Women in Business event that we hosted on International Women's Day. And we all decided we were going to deliver on a topic and a learning session that would help the audience and the women in the room. And I think for me, everything that I sort of share, I think is based on my own lived experience. So I really feel that how I've managed to overcome and become more confident over the years that I've been in business, I thought there's value in that. I'm sure there's other people out there who feel and are going through and probably even sat there at that moment, not feeling very comfortable being in a room full of people who they're going to be forced to have conversations that might really be awkward, and being an introvert. I just felt that was just a really important topic that needed to be voiced. And I think I just wanted to share a few of my own experiences and stories to hopefully inspire others and to make them realise that they can perhaps overcome what I've overcome as well. Because if I can do it, anybody can.
And I think that's really what did inspire me as well, is because I have ADHD and I want to help others show that there are other ways of working in business. If you have divergent issue, challenge, whatever people want to call it, but focusing on why I was there with ADHD, I did feel that the whole thing about small talk, having to make conversations, what do you do, all of that, you can work towards it. I have felt that I've got into a place where I can be the person who is welcoming, greeting, but actually inside I'm trying desperately to read the room. How much am I meant to be sharing? What should I be talking about? Oh my gosh, I'm the only one here. I know I'm not, but I still you still feel that anxiety. So I think you reached out and touched a lot of people that day. And I think the message that I really wanted to carry on and talk to you about was that we are in control. We are in charge of how much we share online, how much we show up. And if we don't show up, we won't have a business, quite frankly. So we do have to show up. And that in itself is a conflict, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the difference being is where you show up, isn't it? It's where you feel comfortable. And I think when you're surrounded by people who are your sort of people, then you are going to be more open and more honest. Whereas I think when you are put outside of your comfort zone and you're mixing with people who aren't necessarily your people, then that is when it is a lot more difficult. And you probably will retract and be more reserved and not want to perhaps get as involved because you don't feel comfortable in those surroundings. And I think as well, we talked about, and a lot of people came up to me after my talk to say that they are introverts and they do find it hard to go and engage with people. And I think that was, again, why I wanted to share that I always felt I needed to be something different to what I was. I needed to be more extrovert to be a success at networking. And I think it wasn't until I started to understand more about being an introvert, more about my own personality type, that I could actually accept myself. So I think it is sometimes, it's an internal thing, isn't it? It's how we feel about ourselves and how we portray ourselves. It's sort of internal work that needs to go on for us to enable ourselves to put ourselves out there. Don't you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely, because classic experiences that people with ADHD have are people pleasing. We want to avoid conflict because whilst we're really in a crisis, if there isn't one, we sort of flounder a bit because we have to actually engage with ourselves and we have to think. And, what is that person saying? Now, oversharing is quite a typical thing that ADHD people do because we've often felt misjudged, misunderstood, and quite frankly, we want to give enough information for people to understand us, and that can come across as being right up in your face and really too much. And we know that as well. So talking about, and that's a really vulnerable position to be in. That is real vulnerability.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because it will help me to understand and help people as well, and understand what it's like from your side of things as well. So
so the oversharing. So talking about showing up, being there for our businesses, we don't have to show our vulnerable side all the time. And I think there's a fine line that people learn quite often by mistake or by default or by accident, because they will make a post, they will say something, video, what have you, and all of a sudden everybody's jumping on board and you can feel as if you're being attacked. No, it doesn't mean that you are, because some people are quite blunt and they will give you your opinion. The other day I made a comment on a post about ADHD, and I've been making the effort to be more thoughtful, okay? And because if I really like something, I'm making the effort to engage. And I've also made the decision not to just engage for the sake of it, because that's not showing up, is it? That's just popping in, isn't it? And the comments we made, we having a really good discussion. I put out my silly sense of humour. So the post was about how somebody had said they'd made 40,000, 40k it said, and then they were now selling a course, and it was criticising, or critiquing I should say, about people who tend to do that. And I did my typical joke, and I put, oh, well, maybe it was 40,000 pesetas, right? And the first person that commented said, well, you obviously didn't realise, or, pesetas went out in 2002, so it's not that. And if you didn't have to be a burden by putting she, her in your bio, you might find, and then it just went on. And I was like, whoa, where's the link, right? What the hell happened? Now, I have quite a tongue-in-cheek of that, but somebody else had jumped in beforehand. I don't even know who they were, and I thanked them. It was very sweet of them, and said, hang on a minute, read the room. Your free tips weren't asked for. And I thought, oh, crikey, you're going to have to be really careful here. This could end up in one of those not very nice little threads. It's on somebody else's post, and at the same time, I didn't want to get involved in it, but at the same time, I wanted to show that I wasn't going to get involved in it and that I was taking it lighthearted, because I felt quite vulnerable about Sharon, because I thought I've got to be really careful what I write here. I don't want to invite conflict, but at the same time, I have to stand for what I believe in. And that is what I wanted to talk about with you as well. How do we do that?
It is really difficult, isn't it? Because I've often gone to comment on things, and you just feel that, am I going to be judged? What reaction am I going to get? How am I going to handle that? Because I'm not very good with conflict either. So I would tend to shy away from that. So I think the fact that you were happy to put yourself out there is a good start, because often there's people who wouldn't even want to speak up for fear of judgment and what have you. So, and I think sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? Because you do, like you say, you want to stand up and stand your ground and stand up. And then thankfully it was recognised by others that behaviour wasn't accepted. And thankfully, probably you, as much as you still want to put a response there, it had sort of almost been dealt with on your behalf by somebody else, hadn't it? Which
it had. And I
think that deflects the situation from you a little bit, doesn't it? And realise that yes, that isn't acceptable behaviour.
No, and I still felt the need to then comment, because I felt myself drawn in, and I will be brutally honest, I did. I felt myself drawn in, and that's quite a hard feeling, because then I was thinking, and I know I'm not the only one that's felt this, as you say, you felt it. It's very typical. We want to have genuine conversations, but we have to be mindful. Now, one of the first things I noticed was, and this was to try and help justify what I felt and was doing, because that's really important. When we're feeling vulnerable, we have to position ourselves. Am I doing the right thing? You had decided beforehand you were going to talk about at the event some things that were personal to you. They were right for that, and you had time to think about and prepare.
Yes.
And there are these times here where we're not, but at the same time, we want people to see us in a good light. It is about business. We don't want to repel somebody. So I noticed that they didn't have a picture. They didn't have a profile picture. So I thought, okay.
Surprise.
And then I noticed in their bio, it said that they were a thought leader. And I just thought, okay. Well, there's the conflict. And so I just said, I must have been Lyra then. Right. And, but here's a free, if we're giving free tips, here's a free tip for you. No, I don't do free tips. I prefer straight talk. Here's some for you. I noticed you had thought leader in your bio, and I'm just wondering how your comment to me, it links with that, roughly those words, because I thought, well, I'm going to invite conversation, but is this somebody who's just doing it for the sake of it? Are they actually an idiot? Are they really just not nice? I just thought, you know what, I'm going to put something out there, test the waters, and just to see what happens and see if I can get a conversation going that is positive, right? And that was my little challenge, because...
So did you continue that on the thread, or did you...
Yes, I just did it. No, I did it on the thread.
Yeah.
I just made one extra comment, and I did that because I had to test my own vulnerability. And I think sometimes we have to do that, don't we? And a couple of people think it fizzled out. I left it at that afterwards. But I felt that I had done that. I had invited it, because we don't know why people act, why they do the things they do, what they think. But if no one ever invites people to have a conversation, what we won't have any, quite frankly.
No. I mean, people have to be called out, don't they? And well done to you for calling that person out, because there's many others that would have let them get away with that behaviour because they wouldn't want to get into that conflict. And hopefully that person has thought about that, and hopefully that is a lesson learned for them in the future.
Well,
when they're commenting, because you do see this, don't you? And I think that's the thing with hiding behind social media, and like you say, there's no picture, so people do get a bit lose the fear of what they're going to say, because they've got something to hide behind, haven't they? Whereas I think put them in a room, they probably wouldn't have the same conversation. And that's like you said about me being vulnerable. I knew I was going to be in a room full of women, and I felt comfortable.
Safe
and safe to share. Yes, yeah. Had I been in a more mixed environment where I didn't feel comfortable to share, and that's not anything derogatory towards men at all, nothing. So I don't hope nobody takes offence at that. But we all have spaces where we feel comfortable, that we can be vulnerable and more open. And I think that's the thing with vulnerability. We choose to be vulnerable in the places where we feel safe to be open and vulnerable, in people that we trust, that we can be and show that vulnerability.
Yeah, that absolutely. So how do you think that vulnerability impacts our businesses? How, because you see on one hand, you want to be we want to sell things, but at the same time, we are marketing, right? Mm-hmm. Marketing is about manipulation into getting people to do things,
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, that's how it is,
Mm-hmm.
We're going to tell you all the wonderful things about this thing. And we might say not everybody likes it or what have you, but mostly we don't. Marketing and promotion is all about showing how we can help people, serve people, sell them something they need. And we've seen there's some amazing marketing campaigns, but we are conditioned to that, aren't we?
Mm. And I think because, as you know, I run a support network for women running their own businesses. So I actively encourage them to be vulnerable. Again, it's a safe space to be vulnerable, but I think the fact that they do feel safe to be vulnerable helps them to build those stronger connections with other people in our network. And if it is something that is challenging them over their business, then everybody comes together to support them. And I think that in a way can almost help you, because those people then are going to want to actively help you if you're struggling to gain clients, for example, and people are sort of giving you ideas and help with that. They're going to look for opportunities for you as well. So I think vulnerability in the right place where you feel safe to share can actually be a win-win, because people can go on then to help you, give you the advice and the support to help you to overcome these things that are making you feel vulnerable.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because, if you're working for somebody or in an office or anything like that, you would have, the water cooler where you could chat and moan about, Fred in accounts, sorry, Fred. I know you've done a great job, really, but, that last invoice, it was totally wrong. So, we've moved away from that. So it's sort of replacing that, isn't it? But what are your thoughts on when you see, now, we all scroll, we all go through, we all are out there looking for inspiration, motivation, for whatever we're looking for. And what are your thoughts when you see this type of situation? Somebody has, I'll use somebody who perhaps does what I do, because I don't want to insult anybody at all in their professions. Okay, so let's just say somebody is teaching people how to build a business, right? And that's in their bio, and they're teaching them how to set up and do things online, etc. And then you see them being quite vulnerable, saying, oh my gosh, just got my first lead magnet out there, finally did it, and I finally put it up there. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I won't hire them because I want somebody who knows what they're doing. That's way far in advance. I don't want to know that in public. They could talk about it in their groups and privately. But I think that type of vulnerability where it basically, I think you have to be, there's a fine line between being vulnerable and sharing and diminishing your perception of competency, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, definitely.
What are your thoughts about that? What advice could you, or what would you suggest? Because women coming into your, the network and the groups you have, they won't know all that. They won't know that this could happen, that they can misunderstand what being vulnerable and showing up means, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think yes, if you are, it's down to the individual, I think, isn't it? And how if they want to share. I mean, I've noticed that I will share more vulnerable posts now than a couple of years ago. I wouldn't have felt comfortable sharing anything, to be honest. And I think it's really interesting that when I have shown more vulnerability, I have now attracted more people who are my type of people. And sometimes I think we do detract from putting that out because of the fear of judgment from people. And it's a really difficult one to answer, because it is that really fine line, because you want to be genuine and authentic and show your true self, but not that something that's going to be derogatory to you and your business and your reputation. So it's almost, if you are going to share something, it's this is what happened, but this is and put a positive spin on it. So, and it's what are you looking to achieve from putting that out there? What is the sort of the thought process behind it? Because I think very often when I put stuff out there that's vulnerable, it is more as an inspiration to others that yes, this did happen, but now, like, I've put out there that about my fear of public speaking, and I was very honest up on that stage. And I think because of the response that I got from doing that talk, I then felt comfortable to put it out on LinkedIn, whereas prior to the event, I probably wouldn't have done. And I think for me, in my position, it's because I want to inspire others that if I can overcome things, then they can. So mine's coming from a slightly different perspective, because it's not coming from my sort of knowledge or expertise in what I'm doing. So it is, yeah. You're
not saying I'm a world-renowned speaker already.
No.
Actually, this could catapult you to that,
Yeah.
because of how you're sharing your journey as you're doing that in a which is not impacting the business nuts and bolts that you do.
No.
So it is a fine line between sharing, our competency skills. So I think being vulnerable about skills. I think if I was going to give some people as advice, I would say that it's be really mindful. But like you said, what is it you want to achieve? And some people don't. They want to show up. They want to be vulnerable. But I think we do have to seriously think about the topics that we're talking about, because let's just put this out here, Sharon. People are going to judge you, and they're only going to judge you in an instant online, from a quick post, from a video. They are going to make their mind up. They might think, oh, that's interesting or not, or they might see what else you do. But if that's all they're seeing, so you have to make sure that people see a range of you, different
Absolutely,
sides.
yes, and you don't want every post to be like that. Like you say,
that's
it's
right.
a combination. And I think sometimes it's almost that when you put it out there, it is that, are you prepared for that response? And it's almost accepting yourself and accepting that you're not going to please everybody. But if the people who your message is targeted to, if that message reaches the people you want it to reach, then that has done its job. And it won't reach everybody, because it won't be what everybody wants to hear or agrees with or what have you. So I think sometimes it's accepting, as long as the people you want to reach that message with, it reaches them, then it has served its purpose. And I think sometimes you do have to just shut out the noise, because you will always have the judges, won't you? You'll always have the people like you experienced who can't help themselves, have got to just put something cryptic and to make themselves feel better or look better or whatever, which doesn't often isn't the outcome that they actually achieve, but that's what they thought they were doing at the time. And I think sometimes, and I think I've certainly, in my 15 years in business, I've definitely become a lot more thick-skinned. I was definitely a lot more sensitive in my early days, and that probably is why it took me so long to be more open and honest, because I always did fear of what people would say and the judgment and everything. So I just kept my mouth shut rather than say anything, because I thought, well, people might say, oh, what's she talking about, or don't value what you say. And so I think a lot of the thing is, again, what we are thinking in our heads and presuming people are thinking or doing or whatever. And I think there's a big element of that. We fear what people might be thinking about us when, what's that saying? I think I said it in my talk, what other people think or say is none of our business. And
That is their business, isn't it? And I guess as well, if it's remembering that, we could join a network, we could join a safe space, and we can let our guard down, we can talk about the things we want to do. I believe that sometimes we forget that we're running a business, and we have to learn. I think we have to learn how to do this. It doesn't necessarily come naturally to
no.
When you migrate online from a offline business, or you start on your own, or whatever you do, that we have to have a business head on. We have to think strategically, and I don't mean that we have to suddenly take away the vulnerability. We have to take away the safe places. We need those, but it's also about recognizing where that line is. I think it's a real thing that's often not talked about. It's okay to share in certain places, and being mindful that when we share in others, there are different consequences, as you've said, and to remember that we need. I'm using the word strategy because we do have to think, what is behind the strategy of why are we posting this? What are we doing? Who are we? The basics of who are we trying to sell to? What is the purpose? What is the point?
Absolutely.
You can get caught up with just being and just being yourself and being out there and sharing all this. And yes, it's been a very successful way for a lot of people because what they sell is highly desirable. And so therefore that hasn't necessarily been an issue. But that's not going to be like that for everybody else. because
and I think that's the importance of having these support networks. So you have got that space. And I think especially when you first start out in business, and I know this from speaking to people recently who have come out of the corporate world, been very successful in their career, probably networked as the business, but not had to network as themselves. And now suddenly they are the business and they've got to go out and show up as themselves. And it's now a totally different experience because they haven't got that company brand to hide behind. They're exposed, it's themselves. And yeah, so I think if you have got that support network around you that helps just to build your confidence, and when you've got your fears and doubts, you've got a place to go and people to turn to who can just encourage you and support you on that journey. I think that is really, really important.
I think it's crucial. Actually, I will go so far to say I think it is a crucial part of being in business online. You have to find your tribe, so to speak, because we default. Otherwise, what happens is we default into things that we've thought, said, done, behaved in, from previously, which has worked in that situation. And we forget, or we don't realise perhaps, that we're now in a completely different situation. Yes, we might be in business, but it's like, all of a sudden you might be working in, Woolworths, which then closed down, and all of a sudden, and you were stocking shelves out the back, and all of a sudden now you're working in an exclusive shop selling high-end clothes, and you're the face of the shop when people come in. They are completely different. They're still in business. You're still doing things. You still improved your skills, but they're so far apart that you have to be a different person almost. And I think by finding a tribe, finding a group, finding people around you is very difficult. And I think we have to just take a chance, because if we want our business to grow, we have to take a chance. The first group we meet might not work. Try another one. Absolutely. But what we will see in there, what my experience is, that when I've done that, I have seen other people who have been in that network or that group or membership, whatever it is, longer than me. And they have established how they are with showing up, and they are more vulnerable. By not being obviously vulnerable, they are actually just being themselves. So at first, I know what I did when I first thinking, oh, crikey, you're all oversharing. What's going on here? I don't give all that stuff away. With it, for goodness, crikey, I don't need to know all that. And I will be honest, it took a while for me to realise that's how we make connections. That's bonding. And from someone with ADHD who struggles with that anyway, I've had to relearn a whole new way of developing relationships and taking the chances. And the only way you can do that, I think, is in an established, supportive, group of people or networking environment, whatever the type of environment is for your business. And I do think that even if you don't necessarily need a typical networking type of group to promote your services, I think everyone should just join anyway for the support and love to mix and meet other people who are going through business struggles. We could talk about that. You don't have to necessarily do that to just find clients. I want people to move away from just joining things just to find clients or just to make sales. Join for yourself. Join for the experience of being with some really great people.
Yeah, I think for me, networking has not just given me obviously the business growth and the clients and what have you, but I think the biggest thing I've got out of networking is the personal development, all the learning and just learning more about myself and accepting myself and building my confidence. They are massive things that you don't traditionally think of when you go networking. Networking traditionally is thought you turn up, you sell your wares, you hand out a few business cards, and that's what networking is all about. But it's just so different to that. And you said earlier about when you're in an employed role, you've got the water machine, you've got the you've got the canteen to chat with people, and then suddenly, and a lot of women that are a part of my network work on their own. They work from home. So they've suddenly lost all of that support network, someone to turn to. Not only that, they haven't got now departments that they can ship stuff off to do the work, because all of that's falling in their lap as well. And suddenly there's that realisation that running a business is perhaps a little bit harder than they originally
Yes.
thought, because suddenly now you've got to have goodness knows how many hats to be able to run a business. So I think, yes, having that support. But I think like you said, it's finding the right people, that it's the right place for you. And don't just join the first place you go to.
Yeah.
Go around and visit different groups, because you will know, your gut instinct will tell you whether that's a place that's right for you or not. So, and there's so much choice out there with both in-person and online networks that you can network any time of any hour of the day or night online all over the world, and in person. So there's so much choice out there that yes, you can find the right place where you feel you really fit in.
And I think that's important. It's about fitting in, isn't it? Because we all do want to belong, and that is part of our vulnerability as people, isn't it? I have made a super effort for this year. I decided at the end of last year, I need to get out more, I just, you just do. I love meeting people. I spark. I love conversations. I do struggle with small talk. A lot of us ADHDers do. But it's about building relationships, so I don't have to keep doing that each time. And when you're in a space where you've got to know people, you don't have to keep doing that. So that's one thing I learned. And the other thing I know, which is this is quite an honest declaration, me being vulnerable here, is that people like me, and I know that it's like, well, why people wouldn't? I know I'm not expecting everybody to like me, but it is a case of people do like me. I can be me. They're just, when I say the word me, I mean me, not just the person who does the funny reels or that gives the insight into, guest expert slots and things like that. Me, myself, my clumsiness, my, things that I do, the things that are just me, that I can be just naturally me. I could be too much, because you don't have to be with me and go home with me. It's just for that moment, And I found that will attract people to me who like me. I didn't realise the importance of that. And so being me always felt very vulnerable, because of a lifetime of being misunderstood, not always reading the room, being a bit fearful, so therefore I miss things when usually I don't. And you were right that when we talked about the very beginning, we talked about the fear of being judged, wanting to avoid conflict, not looking incompetent is a big one for me. Brilliant crisis dealt with. I know what I'm doing, but me on my own, I could be a bumbling idiot. I just can be,
All of us can. Kate. No, you're not on your own there. No, not at all.
But that has given me the personal growth that you were talking about. That has helped develop me personally. I've grown, taken the next steps. I've taken the chance. If people don't, so far no one's turned around and said, it's not, I guess what I'm trying to say is we're not in the school playground, but it is very difficult to remember that sometimes. And if you find that is the situation, then I think you're definitely in the wrong group for a start, the wrong networking group or whatever group you're in. But I think there's so much personal growth we can do. It boosted my confidence. It helps me feel more confident showing up, because I know that at least those people are going to like and post it or make a comment. And that gives me more confidence to just be me. And that is the crux of the vulnerability, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think if you're not showing your true self, you can't build those genuine connections, can you? Because you're not being real. So that's why I think we've both obviously noticed that when we do actually show up as ourselves and not try to pretend something that we're not, that's when we do really gel with the right people, because they can see who we are and they like who we are. And I think for me, it was almost me accepting myself and actually thinking, yes, I am a nice person, and that's what I want to show, and that's what I want people to see, because that's who I really am. And I think it is all that perception and assumptions that we make about what other people are thinking or saying about us. That and I think when we can, and it's not it's not a quick fix because I know from experience it's taken me a long time to get to this point. But yes, now I try and not even think about what other people might be saying or thinking about me, because it doesn't serve me by doing it. It just makes you go more into your shell and not sort of show up, doesn't it? Because you feel you can't if you're feeling like that about yourself. So yeah.
Well, Sharon, we have really explored all aspects of being vulnerable within ourselves, within groups, online, in business. It's a fascinating conversation. I think we need more conversations about it. And I think the message that is coming through quite clearly for me is that if we're going to have a business online, offline, if we're going to do that, we need others. We need support around us for sure.
Yeah.
We may not find that at first, but we also do need that, because underneath it all, we still need a little bit of external validation. Right? Because we just do. Well,
we do.
Yeah. Some of us need more than others. Bring on the love, baby.
Yeah.
but we do, because especially when we're working on our own, we get what I call a bit of decision fatigue. We get like a bit lost in making decisions. Are we doing the right thing if this didn't work? And I think being in a safe place means that we are accepted. I know that I felt welcome and accepted at the event, and have done in anything that I've joined, and that has meant that I can now park that, I can put that aside and now focus on the real work, which is developing relationships, making connections, which will by default help bring me clients and more work. But if not, I've finally realised that it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I need people. And I'm not the only one, am I?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
People around us to help lift us up. We need support. And
the business journey is a tough road, isn't it?
It is.
I don't get what anybody says. It's not an easy ride, and doing it on your own is even more difficult. So yeah, have those right people around you who can support and share your journey with you.
Sharon, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for being here behind the strategy with me. It's been marvellous, and I'm really hoping that we can catch up and pick up this conversation at some point in the future again, when something else jumps up and we say, oh, we must have a chat about that.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Behind the Strategy. I hope you enjoy listening to the next one. Please subscribe so you get notified of when that's published. And if you'd like to find out more, please pop over to thestrategysuccesslab.com. And please do share this with anyone who you think might need this today.